Yo. What up, y'all? What it do, chicken stew? Yo. What it do, chicken stew? Copper colored king, we in the building, baby. We in the building. We got a real cultural one tonight, man. A real cultural one tonight. First things first, right? I just want everybody, right? If you got a friend, or if you yourself are Puerto Rican, or you got friends that come from a Puerto Rican background, or the Puerto Rican diaspora, they culture, tell them to tap into this video, man. Tell them to tap into this video, man, because what we going to talk about, man, we going to talk about a lot of stuff that ain't known amongst that community. Right? This is one of the main common factors that we share with our brothers in the West Indies and the Caribbean islands, our brothers and sisters, man. Them Taínos, man. Them Taínos from the Boriken Islands, man. Shout out all my body. Shout out all my buddies, man. Yeah, tap in, man. We getting this bad boy lit on TikTok. But yeah, man, like I said, man, it's a copper color king, man. We in this one. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tap in. We talking about the origins of Puerto Rico. The history of Puerto Rico. From the arrival of Columbus all the way up until this very point. This one is going to be a series. It's going to be probably like a 7-8 part series. And we just going to go through a book. 2 books that I have, as a matter of fact. One is the history of Puerto Rico. The other one being the history of Hernando de Soto's voyage throughout the Americas. And we're going to learn a lot. Right? We're going to learn a lot. For those who don't know or haven't known much about Puerto Rico, the name Puerto Rico gets its name exactly from what it sounds like. The Port of Rico. Right? Or Port Rico. Port of Rico. Right? Rico Port. Basically. And it's kind of similar to like Portugal, right? The Port of Gaul, Port of Rico. That's where Puerto Rico gets its name from. Puerto Rico has actually had several names over the years. And starting with Boriken, it finished off with Puerto Rico. But these are the things that we are going to learn. We're going to learn about the origins, the names that were given to a lot of the islands on the Caribbean islands, right? All of those islands had a specific name, right? Ayati, Jamaica, Quisqueya, Boriken. They even had a name out there called Yaya, right? St. Lucia, St. Kitts, those places had names. Those islands had names, right? It's a whole lot, but we're going to go over all of that. We also going to learn about Christopher Colombo and his Negro friends, right? His Negro friends that he slid over here with to the Americas, right? His Negro friends, these conversos, these Moors, he slid over here with folks who were in jail in Europe or in Spain, in Portugal. They were in jail. And the only way they were able to obtain their freedom is if they slid over here with Columbus. And a lot of them folks, they did just that. A lot of them came over here with their devious ways, but a lot of them used that as an opportunity to escape the Inquisition over there going on that side. Right? They were leaving, getting on these boats like, yeah, we're going to follow through. We're going to follow suit. We're going to discover new lands and capture new lands in the name of the crown. Once they got over here, they became vagabonds, fugitives, runaways, Seminoles, Maroons, crypto Jews, conversos, mad different names that we could give these folks. So before we get into this one, I'm going to play this clip real quick. This brother is just going to break down everything that I'm going to talk about in this video. But it's just good to hear it from someone who comes from that background, because that means that there is some type of knowledge out there. And not enough people are seeking to obtain that knowledge. Now, let's check it out.
Name, right? Let's talk some facts. See, Puerto Rico's been a beautiful island since the beginning, the days of the Taínos. But in those days, they used to call it Boriken, not Puerto Rico. There was millions of Taínos spread out through the Caribbean islands like Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, the Bahamas. 1,000 years later, Spain came to the island and the Taínos started showing love. You know, that's what Puerto Ricans do, we show love. And as a thank you, Spain pretty much fucked them up. In the 1500s, Ponce de Leon came around with his people and changed the name to Rich Port, aka Puerto Rico. Pretty much brought their culture like the Spanish language, religion, traditions. That doesn't mean the Taíno legacy became extinct. You still see the Taíno symbols all over the island. I mean, the Taíno blood is still found in almost all Puerto Ricans. You know name, right?
Now, why is this important? This is important. Want to make it extremely important. Like I said, Rich Port, not Puerto Rico, Rich Port. That's where they get their name from. And when the Spaniards came over here, the conquistadors, when they came over here, they slid with about 1,500 niggas, 1,500 to 2,000 niggas, and straight up messed up the inhabitants, messed them up, right? And that was just on their like 6th or 7th voyage. It took them 6 to 7 different attempts to colonize these lands, right? Columbus didn't even do it on his first go around. Like he said, Juan Ponce de Leon double backed around and then claimed Puerto Rico for himself, right? Jamaica was claimed. A lot of these different islands, they were claimed. A lot of people don't know that Jamaica was Spanish territory. The first language other than Arawak on Jamaica was Spanish. All these different Spaniards claimed different lands, and that's pretty much how that story starts off, right? Columbus did not claim anything when he first came to the Americas. It took them a lot of attempts to actually claim something, and we're going to learn that. But more or less, though, check this out. So what is an Amerindian? Amerindian is a member of one of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. The Taíno, or Arawak people, were the major population group throughout most of the Caribbean. Their culture was divided into 3 main groups: the Western Taíno, Classic Taíno, and the Eastern Taíno, with other variations within the islands. And as you see in the depiction that they have right there, that is a copper-colored woman. With Asiatic features, yes, but she's still melanated. But the Taíno people, their language, right, they were known in what we would call the northern part of the Caribbean islands. If I'm not mistaken, they call it the Wayward or Leeward. I'm not even going to get into that now. That's a whole different story. But they inhabited what we know as Haiti, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Cuba, and pretty much everything that's up there, right? And then you had the Caribs to the south inhabiting all of the other islands. But these people were Puerto Rico's first, very, very first inhabitants, right? These were the people that were on this island when Columbus came and discovered these people. These were the people that were fascinated to see, quote unquote, white men, right? These copper-colored, indigenous, Taíno, Arawak-speaking people. Now, as the brother stated in the video, their color didn't change, or things didn't really change for these people until the arrival of the Spanish. That's where you have the entire Spanish culture being implemented and immersed on the Taíno people, the Taíno civilization. And now, another thing I want to make clear real quick is that when the Spaniards first got there, they didn't go straight to enslaving these people or forcing them under the repartimiento, however you pronounce that word. They actually were interbreeding and intermarrying with these people. That's what really caused the quote-unquote erasure of the Taíno bloodline. When the Spaniards were sliding, they was getting with the women. And these women are now birthing mulatto, mestizo, musty babies. Musty, not stinky, but musty is just another term for saying half-breed. Now, that doesn't mean the Taíno culture died, because you still had a lot of full-blood people Same with the Incas, same with the Aztecs, same with a lot of the indigenous tribes here in America. It just means that their culture got killed off. I want people to understand this, right? When they tell these stories about these people being murked off or their whole entire civilizations being killed off or whatnot, whatever the case may be, they are only telling stories from the lens of what may strike terror in a person's heart or eyes, from what you may be reading. These people did what they did by screwing the women and making babies. Not to say that there wasn't any rape or slavery in general, but that's just the way they structured things out, and I'm gonna prove it to y'all. As y'all see in the depiction, another brown-skinned Taino man. Right, some more Tainos. Some more full-blooded Tainos. I'm not gonna tell y'all where I got this picture from, but just know it's real close to me. Real close, real dear to me. They not my family, but they family of a friend's, and they are Taino. And as you can see on the left, you have one colored brother, and on the right, you have a semi-colored lady. She's almost the same skin complexion as my mother. And then here we have old maps, Puerto Rico. This is Juan Ponce de Leon's map, right? This was the map that was cultivated once he arrived to the land, right? And then we have more Puerto Ricans on the island. This is 1900. They're going to say that these women are African. That's cap. They have curly, bushy hair. That's just one of the phenotypes of a Taino woman. Shout out my copper-colored queens. More or less, man, I'm just showing y'all this so that we could get an understanding of who these people are, right? And who they are ancestrally. And why you have colored Puerto Rican folks in general, right? I want y'all to know, as much as Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and whatnot, as much as they hate being called black, they were calling y'all Negroes. They called y'all Negroes. The same thing they call us black Americans, they called y'all. So we are all united one way or the other, no matter if we like it or if we don't. We are united. We have a connection there. There's a connection. And that connection comes from that term Negro. Negros de terra. Negros de terra. Negroes of the land. More or less, though. So, just to move forward, so I won't be sitting here chatting y'all ears off. Just want to show y'all pretty much like a little breakdown. We're not gonna read through all of this because majority of it is filled with comments, but a lot of it has a lot of facts. Right? This is just a WordPress blog post, and in this blog post, it depicts the truth of the conquest, right? The truth, the Taino genocide. You see these copper-colored, curly-haired, brown-skinned inhabitants being pillaged and eaten alive by dogs, right? We're gonna learn about that. Pillaged and eaten alive by dogs, right? Straight up massacring folks, right? That's the type of time they was on. They wasn't on no slavery. It wasn't no slavery. It was like, get on the land, take advantage of them. And once they got a whiff of what was going on, we're going to start murking folks off. And then after that, they implemented the repartimiento, or the other form of slavery called the encomienda. The encomienda was something that was used in the early 15th, late 16th century, right? It was a Spanish labor system, right? They had labor systems like each labor system got packed up, though. They kept packing it up, banning labor on the inhabitants of the Americas due to the harshness of the quality of the labor, the harsh quality of the labor. So what these assholes did to keep up with the times was, this is where the reclassification plays a role. Check out my older videos. They reclassified everybody, majority of these folks, from Indian to African, just so that they can remain slaves. Now they didn't die off, they reclassified them. That's just how that works. That's how it worked. But look, the encomienda was a Spanish labor system that rewarded conquerors with the labor of conquered non-Christian peoples. In theory, the conquerors provided the laborers with benefits including military protection and education. The encomienda was first established in Spain following the Christian Reconquista, and it was applied on a much larger scale during the Spanish colonization of the Americas and Spanish East Indies. Conquered peoples were conquered vassals of the Spanish monarch. The crown awarded the encomienda as a grant to a particular individual. In the conquest era of the early 16th century, the grants were considered a monopoly on the labor of particular groups of indigenous peoples. Held in perpetuity by the grant holder, called encomiendo, starting from the new laws of 1542, the encomienda ended upon the death of the encomiendo and was replaced by the repartimiento. The repartimiento. I said that right for the first time. Woo! Shout out, folks. The repartimiento, though. So yeah, they brought over these labor systems with them, right? And all of this just ended up turning into slavery at the end of the day. So like I said, we're just going to take a look at the Taino genocide, right? And just pinpoint some of the more important parts, right? Before we even dive into stuff like this. It's a little paragraph from a book that I was going to bring to the channel a little bit later. And then until we dive actually into who banned the trade of Native American slaves. Who banned it, right? This man banned it in Louisiana. And if I'm not mistaken, this was across the Caribbean islands too. He banned it. And in order to keep these people as slaves, they had to reclassify them. So we're going to go into that. And then we're going to go into the book, The History of Puerto Rico, y'all. All my buddies, I need y'all to tap in. Right? Tap in. Wait, hold on real quick, right? Real quick. Hey. Hold up. Let's hold on. We getting crazy for one time though. Let's do it. All right, but yeah, I had to have some fun with y'all real quick. So, all right, boom. The Taino genocide, 1492 to 1518. This is where the Spanish wiped out most of the Taino Arawaks, right? People of the Northern Caribbean, present-day Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, DR, Puerto Rico, Bahamas, etc. Like I said. According to one estimate, genocide and disease wiped out 3 million to 3.5 million of Tainos. Cap, 85%. Cap. See, all that is cap, right? The blood of the Taino flows in the bodies till this day. All right. They killed women and children. Facts. The Spanish were kinder to their animals. Facts, right? They even ate their own dogs, just to let y'all know. These Spanish, listen, folks them is nasty. I ain't gonna lie. Folks them is nasty, right? They killed Tainos by the thousands, right? Look, Higüey, Jaragua, Magua, Marion, right? This right here is a map. This is Puerto Rico. And all of the old names of the cities, right? That's the old cities when these folks were inhabiting this island. This is Puerto Rico, though. Higüey, Maguna, Jaragua, and Marion. We're going to even see mentions of these in the books that I'm bringing to y'all, right? This is just some historical information. Like, it's cool to know, right? Like, you got Old San Juan today, but if you pinpoint where Old San Juan is with a map like this, you know that this existed long before Old San Juan. As a matter of fact, the people who founded San Juan are the people who conquered one of these lands, right? Somewhere on this land, right? These same Spaniards, these conquistadors, right? These same folks, right? Where we at? Taino men, they worked in the mines. They was worked to death. As many as 90% died in 3 months. Taino women worked the land and even heavy work that men used to do. There was little food that babies died for lack of milk. Yeah, it was a lot of malnutrition going on, definitely. Columbus demanded a certain amount of gold or cotton from each Taino over the age of 13. Definitely, people don't know this. It was a lot. It was an abundance of gold in Puerto Rico. All of this was shocking behavior by the Western standards of times. It was such hell on earth that mothers killed their babies and mass suicides were common. Right? Cap, look at this. Where there were no longer enough Taínos workers left, the Spanish brought in African slaves to take their place. Cap. What else? Oh, here we go. A Taino king, Hatui, the Taino king of Cuba, told his people to throw the gold in the river. The Christians worship gold as their god and would kill them for it. Ooh, pointing out the Christian paganism, right? The paganism among the Spaniards, right? Their worship of materialistic items, this stuff that was abundant on the land. The inhabitants didn't even give a damn, truth be told. They could care less on how much gold was on the land because they didn't use gold to value life. That wasn't what it was. That wasn't the ways of living in the early classical, the late classical America, right? The America that we don't know about, right? That wasn't one of them things, man. It wasn't. Boom. They was about to burn at the stake. They was about to burn Hatui at the stake. Oh, wow. Look at that. So we had a Taino king in Cuba, right, who was about to get burned at the stake for making his people toss away the gold. Just some facts like that. Like, look at what they was doing to the people of the islands, man. The inhabitants, the true the people who have a rightful ownership to that island, to those islands. I want y'all to check this out, right? This goes hand in hand with the reclassification, right? So just check this out. I mentioned this in one of my last videos or live stream. I cannot recall. They said evidence indicates that there could not have been that many Africans there and that there were a great many American slaves or servants. Thus, the total of blacks must have included a good many Americans. This is saying that most of these enslaved people in America were classified as black, Negro, straight up. Like I just told y'all. Like I was just telling y'all, the reclassification of the people to make sure that these folks remain slaves and they will never know where they come from or who they truly are. So they will always and forever be indebted or devoted to what we tell them what it is. Like if we tell black people they African, they gonna stick to that, right? We gonna tell Spanish people that they are Spanish and not indigenous or Taino. They gonna stick to that. They are gonna stick to that. This is according to their game plan, right? That's their game plan to make us believe, right? Mental slavery, not physical. It ain't like that no more. This is how they did it though, right? Because we already experienced enough physical trauma. It's now it's time to hit them where it really hurt, in the heart and in the brain, right? But they can't stop the rain. One more time, hold on, just one more time, hold on. Nah, for real though. For real. So look, like I said, repartimiento. This was the second colonial labor system imposed upon the indigenous population of Spanish America and in the Philippines. It was similar to other tribute labor systems such as the Mita of the Inca Empire or the Corvée of the ancient regime de France. Though the Pueblos de Indios, the Amerindians, were drafted work for cycles of weeks, months, or years on farms and mines and workshops. The Amerindians, like I just showed y'all, who are these Taino Amerindians? These copper-colored people. Remember, this is always who they're going to be referring to. Always. Always. But yeah, so like the repartimiento declined officially, right, the diminution of the number of natives in the Americas due to European diseases, caps, which some folks did die to, but this was all just the flu. I want people to understand that's all just the flu, right? That's all that was, and chickenpox and flu, and yeah, smallpox being a part of the flu that they just didn't have no type of, remedy for. People in America, they not used to that, right? They weren't used to that. They weren't getting sick from stuff like that in America because these folks were living in such clean environments, right? They brought this over here with their dirt. I ain't gonna lie. Some of our ancestors do come from them bodies of land too. Not saying they were dirty, but we all know who brought cleanliness to those empires, right? More colored people. More colored people. But yeah, the repartimiento died off, right? It led to they explained how it was the substitution, right? And the creation of privately owned farms and haciendas. Haciendas is something else that I spoke about on my channel. A hacienda is just like a plantation. A hacienda is a plantation, right? And after the creation of these haciendas, they would look for wage labor. Now people was being paid, right? Certain folks are being paid to do labor in the Spanish colonies. But in addition to that, though, they know that they could bring in African slaves to make up for this quote unquote dead population. So when they bring these African slaves in, they think, well, we can't get all these peoples in abundant numbers, which is going to be a waste from us. How can we keep these indios, right? These indios, these pueblos, these indios, these negros de terra, how can we keep them enslaved? And the big plan with that was to change them from Indian to African. Very simple for them, but detrimental to us. Very detrimental to us. Right? But even more so, like I said, I was going to mention who banned Indian slavery in the colonies. And I'm thinking, from what I read, this was just only in Louisiana. I know they banned it in the Spanish colonies on the Indies too as well, in the West Indies. And a lot of those folks were reclassified. Check out my older videos. I don't need to restate it. I don't need to repeat myself. Y'all should be tuning in enough by now to understand that the information that we putting out, it ain't no bull crap. So if you missing out, that's on you. And if you tuned in on TikTok right now, I want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Copper Colored King. But yeah, Alejandro O'Reilly, who was also known, if I'm not mistaken, as Bloody O'Reilly. Basically, he was the folk who kind of sort of abolished slavery of the Aboriginals, right? Look, see, he reestablished Spanish rule and issued a decree on December 7th, 1769, which banned the trade of Native American slaves, right? Now, only the slaves that are already on the land, they stay as slaves. That's it. Although there was no movement toward the abolition of African slave trade, see, Spanish rule introduced a new law called coartación, which allowed slaves to buy their freedom and that of other slaves. Spain also shipped Romani slaves to Louisiana. A group of Maroons led by Jean St. Malo resisted re-enslavement from their base in the swamps of New Orleans between 1780 and 1784. Now, we already know this man could have been a mulatto man, mulatto aboriginal French mixed man. It's a possibility. But look, after they banned the trade of Native American slaves, they introduced something new called the coartación, which allowed slaves to buy their freedom and that of other slaves. This is all the way in the 1700s, right? So they just kept implementing new systems that constantly changed things for the lifestyles of the enslaved peoples. And this also goes for Puerto Rico, Jamaica, DR, well, Haiti, Hispaniola, all that. It goes for all of those islands. So more or less, like I said, we're gonna go into the book, History of Puerto Rico, just to learn a little bit about the origins of this beautiful island I've actually been to. Right, I've been there and I've seen the beauty with my own two eyes. Very, very, very beautiful. Went to Old San Juan, went to Senor Frogs, rode the jet ski. I actually fell off. Right, I've drank coconut on the beach, fresh coconut, and I went to the hood and ate empanadas. Like real life, like in real life. I just want to shout out my folks from Puerto Rico one more time, bro. Just one more time. I'm not even gonna lie, y'all. I'm in love with that beat. That's the closest I could have got to making something close to Latin music and reggae at the same time. Like I don't know if I did too good on that. Y'all can let me know. Maybe I did kind of bad. I could improve, always improve. But point of it all is these are all copper colored beats, man. Copper colored beats. Make sure y'all tap in. But yeah, more or less, like I said, the history of Puerto Rico from the Spanish discovery to the American occupation, by R.A. Van Medelick, right? This is from the Librarian of the Free Public Library, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Edited by Martin G. Brumenbach, PhD, LLD, blah, 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 all that other stuff, right? So let's go into it, man. Editor's preface, right? Are we gonna read the editor's preface? Let's check it out. Let's see what it says. The author has endeavored to portray salient characteristics of the life on the island, to describe the various acts of the reigning government, to point out the evils of colonial rule, and to figure the general historical and geographical conditions in a manner that enables the reader to form a fairly accurate judgment of the past and present state of Puerto Rico. We about to learn, y'all. It's gonna get good. It's gonna get real good, and it's gonna get real good, and I'm so happy to bring this to the channel, man, because like I said, bro, I know a lot of people that don't know nothing about their country's history. So tune in now while Copper Color King is bringing it to YouTube. It's free, and you don't gotta buy no books because I got them all for you. Let's do it. So yeah, so what we see. No attempt has been made to speculate upon the setting of this record and the larger record of Spanish life. That is a work for the future. But enough history of Spain and in general of continental Europe is given to render intelligible the various and varied governmental activities exercised by Spain in the island. There is no doubt much omitted to that future research may reveal, and yet it's just to state that the record is fairly continuous and that no salient factors in the island's history have been overlooked. The people of Puerto Rico were loyal and submissive to their parent government. No record of revolts and excessive rioting is recorded. The island has been continuously profitable to Spain. With even ordinarily fair administration of government, the people have been self-supporting and in many cases have rendered substantial aid to other Spanish possessions. Her native life, the Boriken Indians, rapidly became extinct, due to the gold fever and the intermarriage of races. What did I tell y'all? What did I say? Didn't I say Copper Color King I'll tell you a truth and I can tell you a lot. I mean, I'll tell you a truth, but I will never tell you a lot. Yeah. They became extinct, quote unquote, due to the intermarriage of races, right? So intermarriage is not saying that they really died off. Nah, folks just got with Spanish people, and like Sun said in the video that I introduced in the beginning of this video, they just picked up on the Spanish culture. They picked up on the Spanish culture. That's just what it was. Intermarriage was racist. So, for my folks out there in Puerto Rico, your great grandparents could be Taino. They could be Taino. If you can, I would advise you guys, do your research. You see what you'll find out. The peon class has always been a faithful laboring class in the coffee, sugar, and tobacco estates. And the slave element was never large. The slave element was never large, which means they did not die off due to slavery. They died off due to, like he said, intermarriage of races. Right? And some folks obviously would have been possibly killed upon the arrival of the Spanish to the islands. This to take their possessions. But this has nothing to do with slavery because they was intermarrying. All right, they had the repartimiento, and obviously they were reclassifying a lot of people, but in order to get by, what they did, they intermarried. So this is just to let people know that the blood of the Taino, it still flows through the veins. It still flows through the veins. Right, for sure. There's no middle class. There's an utter absence of the legitimate fruits of democratic institutions. The poor are in every way objects of pity and sympathy. They are the hope of the island. By education widely diffused, a great unrest will ensue, and from this unrest will come the social, moral, and civic uplift of the people. These people do not suffer from the lack of civilization. They suffer from the kind of civilization they have endured. The inhabitants of Puerto Rico do not suffer from civilization. Lack of civilization. They suffer from the style and culture and ways of life that they endured, that were imposed upon them. Right? A capitalistic system imposed on people who know nothing or associate nothing of their ways of life to capitalism. Right? They just live. Every day they just live. Right? That's the best way to live. To just live. Right? The life of the people is static. Her institutions and customs are so set upon them that one is most impressed with the absence of legitimate activities. The people are stoically content. Such at least was the condition in 1898. Under the military government of the United States, much was done to prepare the way for the future advance. Its weakness was due to its effectiveness. It did for the people what they should learn to do for themselves. The island needed a radically new governmental activity, an activity that would develop each citizen into a self-respecting and self-directing force in the island's uplift. This has been supplied by the institution of civil government. The outlook of the people is now infinitely better than ever before. So what the author is saying is that ever since they became under American possession, life got better for them. Life became better for Puerto Ricans once they got under United States government protection, or whatever the case may be. Which I would highly doubt, because they don't even love us, and we're Americans. Right? They don't even get right with us, and we're Americans. Like, we going through it right now in our own country, and that's crazy. And a lot of other people in their own countries are going through it as well. So it's like we living in the third world country right along with them. Honestly, that's what it's looking like. We just got a lot more leadway, right? We spoiled third world country living citizens. That's what it is. But we all share a common thing, right? That struggle of trying to make it in a third world country. Because I'm going to call America a third world country. I'm not going to lie. But yeah. So, moving forward, we're going to skip past the rest of this, right? And we're going to go straight into chapter 1. Straight into chapter 1. Let's do it. So, it's the departure, right? This is the name of the chapter is called The Departure. And this chapter kind of just speaks about Columbus and the series of events that happened after he left from Spain or Portugal in 1492. So look, let's talk about it. 8 centuries of a gigantic struggle for supremacy between the crescent and the cross, the crescent being the Moorish Muslim folks over there, and the cross had devastated the fairest provinces of the Spanish peninsula. Bobadil, the last of the Moorish kings, had delivered the keys of Granada into the hands of the Queen Isabel. The proud banner of the United Kingdoms of Castile and Aragon floated triumphant from the walls of the Alhambra and the Providence as if it to recompense Iberian knighthood for turning back the tide of Muslim conquest, which threatened to overrun the whole of the meridional Europe, had laid a new world, with all its inestimable treasures and millions of benighted inhabitants, at the feet of the Catholic princes. So this is just basically breaking down what was going on in Europe at the time before they decided, hey, let's go to America, right? The reason why they came here in the first place was so that they could rebuild their own country, right? They wanted to use the spoils from America to rebuild their country because they was flat broke, right? Both sides were left broke after this war, right? After the fight over Europe, the Moorish Europe or whatever the case may be. And once the cross, when they talk about the cross, the Catholics took the Iberian Peninsula away from the Moors, they kind of had lost their foothold of the European world. They lost their foothold, leaving the gate open for Queen Isabel to stomp right through and take over, right? And then after this, they locked up and enslaved all of the people who fought against them, right? Or who were still Jews, right? In Europe, locked them all up or enslaved them, made them prisoners, and told them like, hey, if you want freedom, go with Columbus to America, right? Like I told y'all, and some of them, when they got here, became runaways. So that's just what they're talking about in that first paragraph, just to give y'all some breakdown, right? So it says, Columbus had just returned from his first voyage. He had been scorned as an adventurer by the courtiers of Lisbon, marked as a visionary by the learned priests of the council in Salamanca, who with texts from the scriptures and quotations from the saints had tried to convince him that the world was flat. He had been pointed by the rabble in the streets as a madman who maintained that there was a land where the people walked with their heads down. And after months of trial, he had been able to equip his 3 small craft and collect a crew of 90 men only by the aid of a royal schedule, offering exemption from punishment for offenses against the laws to all who should join the expedition. Like I just told y'all. Bing, 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 right? Hit it right on the head. First chapter, right? They offered the exemption to these conversos, crypto Jews, and all of these other folks and whatnot. These people who were locked up for their religious beliefs, right? They offered them exemption from punishment if they would join the expedition with Columbus to come to America. That's that right there. At last, he had sailed amid the murmurs of an incredulous crowd, who thought him and his companions doomed to a certain destruction. And now he had returned, bringing with him the living proofs of what he had declared to exist beyond that mysterious ocean, and showed to the astounded people samples of the unknown plants and animals, and of the gold which he had said would be found there in fabulous quantities, right? Folks is already saying like, yep, we gonna find gold there. It's gold. I heard it was gold. I heard it was a lot of gold. People came over. People already telling him about what you can find in America. Like, you already had people who already had stories about their travels to the quote unquote new world, right? Columbus wasn't the first person to come over here. That's cap. That's ballpark, right? There's even a story that Mansa Musa had a brother that came over here to America. I don't know how authentic that one may be, right? I'm not too sure, but it could be a possibility. Like with that type of bread Mansa Musa had back then, it was possible. It was definitely possible. But Columbus wasn't the first person to come over here, so he was hearing stories from other people, telling him like, yo, you gotta go to America, dude. They got some stuff over there, bro. You gotta get your hands on that. And in America, they don't give a shit about it. So you could just take whatever you want. That's pretty much, right? People were already telling son, right? There were already people that knew how beautiful and how abundant America's grassland and woodland and the water and everything about it. They already knew. Right? They already knew. Shout out Herodotus and Socrates, right? Their stories. Right? We're going to be bringing those to the channel, man. It was the proudest moment of the daring navigator's life when, clad in his purple robe of office, bedecked with the insignia of his rank, he entered the throne room of the palace in Barcelona and received permission to be seated in the royal presence to relate his experiences. Around the hall stood the grandees of Spain and the magnates of the church, and obsequious and attentive. I don't know that word. Sorry, y'all. And attentive to him. Now they had been proud and disdainful when a hungry wanderer, he had knocked at the gates of La Rabida to beg bread for his son. Right? Who knew Columbus was a poor man that used to beg? He used to knock at the gates of the La Rabida. What is the La Rabida? Is this the rabbi? Is La Rabida? Does that mean rabbi? Does La Rabida mean rabbi? We got to see the definition of that. I didn't think to stop and check that one. The Virgin of Miracles, La Rabiba. So he used to knock on the La Rabiba's door and beg for bread for his son. Who knew Columbus was a poor man? Right? That man is not what people or what history portrays him to be. Is a lot that was swept under the rug with him, especially revolving around also his religion, color his skin, right? Hence the cover of the thumbnail of this video. Bet you I ain't know. I bet you I ain't know that man was colored. Columbus and his Negro homeboys, right? It was the acme of the discoverer's destiny, the realization of his dream of glory, the well-earned recompense of years of persevering endeavor. The news of the discovery created universal enthusiasm, right? The discovery of America had people going crazy, like, oh yeah, we all got to go over there. Now, it had all the Spaniards wanting to pop out, and that's just a whole fact. It had the entire country wanting to pop out. They wanted to slide. They wanted to come and take advantage of what was over here in America, right? A lot of those folks wanted freedom, like I told y'all. When it was announced that a second expedition was being organized, there was no need of a royal schedule of remission of punishment to criminals to obtain crews. The admiral's residence was besieged all day long by the hidalgos, who were anxious to share with him the expected glories and riches. The cessation of hostilities in Granada had left thousands of knights, whose only patrimony was their sword, without occupation. Men with iron muscles, insured to hardship and danger, eager for adventure and conquest. Now, who were these men? Right, these men without jobs. Because if they didn't have jobs, that mean they wasn't siding with the cross. Right? These were the Moors, y'all. These was these colored folks. Right? These was these colored folks. I promise y'all. This is just how you know it's just how they describe them, right? Even though you had colored folks rolling with the cross too, right? These were the Moors, right? These folks that were left in Granada without a job, right? Those are the Moors that they talking about. So Columbus slid over here with the Moors from Granada, the Moors of Europe, the Moors from the Iberian Peninsula. Right, it's letting us know right there in that sentence without even telling us, right? If you know history and you know what was going on, then you already know. You already know. Right? Then there were the monks and priests whose religious zeal was stimulated by the prospects of converting to Christianity the benighted inhabitants of the unknown realms. There were ruined traders who hoped to mend their fortunes with the gold to be had, as they thought for picking it up. Finally, there were the proteges of royalty and of influential persons at court, who aspired to lucrative places in the new territories. In short, the admiral counted among the 1,500 companions of his second expedition individuals of the bluest blood in Spain. Yep, that's what it was. I told y'all. He came over here with 1,500 homeboys, right? And they couldn't even get it done the first time. Told you, like, it's a hit or miss with these guys, right? I already know they wasn't pleasing they ladies in bed, because how you can't get it done the first time, right? I mean, listen, that's what they say too, right? They say these folks on the land was savages and they were like beating on their chest like monkeys and whatnot. You should see some of the things they say. Folks over here, bro, were smart, tactical, right? They knew how to wage war. They knew how to wage full-scale war. And that's why each time the Spaniards spent, they got torched, decimated, screwed up, beat down. Every single time. The first 7 to 10 times when they tried to come and take this land from our people, they got smoked. Yep, and I'm going to say it with my chest out. Beat that ass. For sure. Right? As for the mariners, men at arms, mechanics, attendants, and servants, they were mostly greedy, vicious, ungovernable, and turbulent adventurers, right? All of these people that they talking about, right? Those are the Jews, right? Merchants, mariners, men at arms, mechanics, attendants, servants, right? Jews, conversos, crypto Jews, Moors, Muslims, black people, colored people, light-skinned people, whatever you want to call it, right? But they all had a little bit of color in their blood, like on their body, like some color, right? Some color for sure. See? The confiscated property of the Jews, supplemented by a loan and some extra duties on articles of consumption, provided the funds for the expedition. So what they did after the Inquisition, during the Inquisition, they were taking these folks' possessions, right? Like, just put it like this, right? For some of us, you got a great grandpops from back then, right? Who probably had mad bread in terms of bread at that time. Who would have converted all of that stuff once he came to America, right? Had all of that stuff not been happening, we probably would have been born in Europe. Just letting y'all know. Had buku guap, right? And once all of this stuff went down, everything was taken away. And they used that to fund the expedition for them to come over here to America. And then told those same people that they robbed, like, yo, look, you won't be able to be free unless you go work for the money that we just stole from y'all. Ain't that crazy? Right? Don't it sound all too familiar? They've been screwing us up with this system for too long, bro. For too long, bro. Way too long. But anyway, let's continue. So, what it says. Oh yeah, a sufficient quantity of provisions was embarked. 20 Grenadian lancers with their spirited Andalusian horses were accommodated. Ulysses, sword pikes, crossbows, muskets, powder, and balls were ominously abundant. Seed corn, rice, sugarcane, vegetables, etc. were not forgotten. Cattle, sheep, goats, swine, and fowl for stocking. The new provinces provided for future needs, and a breed of mastiff dogs originally intended perhaps as watchdogs only, but which became in short time the dreaded destroyers of the natives. Takes us back to this photo. like I said, they used bloodhounds and mastiffs. Not just mastiffs, bloodhounds and mastiffs. And then they would eat these dogs like savages. Finally, Pope Alexander VI of infamous memory drew a line across the map of the world from pole to pole and assigned all the undiscovered lands west of it to Spain and those east of it to Portugal, thus arbitrarily dividing the globe between the two powers. At daybreak, September 25th, 1493, 17 ships, 3 carracas of 100 tons each, 2 naus and 12 caravels sailed from Cadiz amidst the ringing of bells and the enthusiastic godspeeds of thousands of spectators. The son of a Genoese wool herder stood there, the equal in rank of the noblest hidalgo in Spain, admiral of the Indian seas, viceroy of all the islands and continents to be discovered, and 1/10 of all the gold and treasures they contained would be his. They are referring to Columbus, right? They're referring to Columbus. Look at all these titles that they're giving him that don't even really fit the description, because guess what? Like I told y'all, he was a prisoner. He was a prisoner himself. Alas, for the ever seen of worldly greatness, all this glory was soon to be eclipsed. 8 years after that day of triumph, he again landed on the shore of Spain, a pale and emancipated prisoner in chains. Right? They locked your boy up. They locked him up. Right? He was normally, as a matter of fact, on the regular being made to be a prisoner. Right? To his own king and queen. Right? So the man, the myth, the legend that they give all these accolades to, it doesn't even fit the description with the brother. On top of that, his name ain't even Christopher Columbus. Right? So, not to strip. It's just lies. It's all hijack. It's all lies. It's all hijack. But who would have knew? Columbus a prisoner. All right, let's continue. It may be easily conceived that the voyage for these 1,500 men, most of whom were unaccustomed to the sea, was not a pleasure trip. Fortunately, they had fine weather and fair wind till October 26, when they experienced their first tropical rain and thunderstorm, and the admiral ordered litanies, whatever that is. On November the 2nd, he signaled to the fleet to shorten sail, and on the morning of the 3rd, 1,500 pairs of wandering eyes beheld the mountains of an island mysteriously hidden till then in the bosom of the Atlantic Ocean. Among the spectators were Bernal Diaz de Pisa, a captain of the fleet, the first conspirator in America, 13 Benedictine friars, with Boyu at their head, who, with Marin Pedro de Marguerite, the strategists, respectively represented the religious and military powers. There was Roldan, another insubordinate, the first alcalde of the Espanola. There were Alonso de Ojeda and Guevara, true knights errant, who were soon to distinguish themselves. The first by the capture of the chief Canobo, the second by his romantic love affair with Higumota, the daughter of the chiefess, Anacoca. Right? So basically, in this part, they're referring to all of the people that Columbus was with when they first came over here and discovered the island of Puerto Rico. All these different Spaniards. And in this process, right, they captured a Taino chief by the name of Canobo, and then had a love affair with the daughter of another chief by the name of Anacona, and that daughter's name was Higumota. Right, so off the rip already, they came over here on Spanish timing, murking off the dudes, or just doing something with the dudes, like killing them or putting them to work, and then breeding the women. Into breeding off the gate. Right? Putting their blood, like stamping themselves on new lands, right? And you know, it makes me think like these folks, they knew exactly what they was doing. Because they knew, they had to know at some point everybody has to die. Right? And in the process of us discovering this quote unquote new land, how else are we going to leave our stamp other than by leaving our blood? Our bloodline. Right? And this is all a part of the reclassification, right? All a part of the reclassification. That's all a part of it. Especially because a lot of the people from the Americas, they were open to these people. They were open at first. And that left them vulnerable for that type of hostile takeover. Right? Just imagine right now, us as human beings, you as a human being, you go to a specific city or country. Just imagine how hard it would be for you as one individual to literally repopulate that entire culture or civilization of people when you're planting your seed. Like, it's going to be extremely hard without forcibly getting it done. Right? Unless the people are open to it. You know, if they're open to it, then it'll make it easier to happen, right? Like a strategized, hostile takeover. That's what I call it. That's what I call it, for sure. And now they're going to make mention of some of the other Spaniards who were with them as well. So, they say that there was Adrian Mojica, destined shortly to be hanged on the ramparts of Fort Concepcion by the order of the Viceroy. There was Juan de Escovel, the future conqueror of Jamaica, who we're definitely going to learn about, especially in our History of Jamaica series. Sebastian Olano, receiver of the royal share of the gold and other riches that no one doubted to find. Father Martinia, the admiral's first protector, friend, and counselor. 2 knights commandeers of military orders Gallego and Arroyo. The fleet's physician, Chanca. The queen's 3 servants, Navarro, right? Remember this name, Penafilio de Navarro, right? We're going to talk about Navarro. Pena, Soto, the De Sotos, and Guiado. The pilot, Antonio de Torres, who was returned to Spain with the admiral's ship and first dispatches. There was Juan de la Cosa, cartographer, who traced the first map of the Antilles. There was the father and uncle of Bartolome de las Casas, the apostle of the Indies, Diego de Penalusa, the first notary public, Fermin Jado, the metallurgist, and Villacorta, the mechanical engineer, Luis de Arega, afterwards famous as the defender of Fort Magdalena, Diego Velasquez, the future conqueror of Cuba, who we're going to also learn about in our History of Cuba series, right? These are the people who were with Columbus when they slid, when they first came here. And like I told people on my TikTok, right, if you guys are paying attention, the fathers of some of these Spaniards that did a lot of these nasty things, like especially like Ponce de Leon and the De Soto brothers, were here with Columbus when they first came to the Americas. Right? They were here with Columbus. They came with him. Right? Also, look, we got he said, who else? Vega Albacra, Gil Garcia, Margoez, Maldonado, Beltran, and many other doughty warriors whose names had been the terrors of the Moors during the war in Granada. Finally, there were Diego Columbuses, the admiral's brother. Christopher Columbus had a brother named Diego Columbus, right? And I wonder what his true name was, right? Because we know Columbus' real name was not Christopher Columbus, right? So if he had a brother, maybe he can also have a hidden identity or alias, something worth researching, right? And among the men at arms, one destined to play the principal role in the conquest of Puerto Rico. His name was Juan Ponce, a native of Santaveras or San Servas de Campos in the kingdom of Leon, right? Juan Ponce de Leon, Juan Ponce from Leon. That's where the De Leon comes from. Right? He also was with Columbus. Like, all these folks came here together. And when they came, they slid, they broke off. It was like, all right, we each go take a piece of land. Right? We each gonna conquer our own piece of land. And Juan Ponce de Leon, he was really the first conqueror of Puerto Rico. Really, honestly speaking. All right, Columbus kept it pushing. He didn't stay in Puerto Rico for too long. So, Juan Ponce de Leon, he was really the conqueror of Puerto Rico. Right, as they just stated. He had served 15 years in the war with the Moors as page or shield bearer to Pedro Nunez de Guzman, Knight Commandeer of the Order of Calatrava, and he had joined Columbus like the rest to seek his fortune in the Western Hemisphere. And we're going to go into chapter 2. I'm happy we get to get 2 chapters of this one done. Right, so it says, the first island discovered on this voyage lies between 14 degrees and 15 degrees north latitude, near the middle of a chain of islands of different sizes, intermingled with rocks and reefs which stretch from Trinidad near the coast of Venezuela in a north by westerly direction to Puerto Rico. They are divided in 2 groups, the Windward Islands forming the southern and the Leeward Islands forming the northern portion of the chain. Like I said, Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Haiti, all of that in the Bahamas are the Leeward Islands. And as you go lower, you start going into the Windward Islands. Right, so this is something to note for the people with Caribbean ancestry, you know, folks who don't, like, you know, a lot of people don't know stuff like that. So make a note of it. All right, let's continue. The admiral shaped his course in the direction in which the islands, one after the other, loomed up, merely touching at some for the purpose of obtaining what information he could, which was meager enough. For an account of the expedition's experiences on that memorable voyage, we have the fleet physician Chanca's circumstantial description addressed to the Municipal Corporation of Seville, sent home by the same pilot who conveyed the admiral's first dispatches to the king and queen. After describing the weather experience up to the time the fleet arrived at the island, the Hierro, he tells their worships that for 19 and 20 days, they had the best weather ever experienced on such a long voyage, excepting on the eve of San Simon, when they had a storm which for 4 hours caused them great anxiety. It was a lot of, that's another thing too. A lot of these folks were shipwrecked. Like, they talked that talk like how they was bringing slaves and all that over here. Not the way these storms was wiping them out. They were getting wiped out by the numbers, bro, due to hurricanes and a whole bunch of other typhoons and stuff that was going down in the Atlantic Ocean. They could barely make it over here. That's what I'm saying. Like, history don't tell us this though. They could barely make it to America. Barely. They barely made it here. Right? It took them some serious time just to get here to America, bro. Like, I'm being for real now. Like, they like, oh man, like when you read in these history books, all of this mumbo jumbo, like they came over here with slaves and this, that, and the third, and whatever the case may be and whatnot. It's all cap, bro. It's all cap. They could barely make it here. And if you live on TikTok, make sure you come over here to the YouTube channel. You know, take a look at what we got going on. And for those who are live on YouTube, step over to TikTok, Copper Color King. But they can barely make it here. Barely, bro. Right? Look, check this. At daybreak on Sunday, November 3rd, the pilot of the flagship announced land. Right? It was marvelous, says Chanca, to see and hear the people's manifestations of joy, and with reason, for they were very weary of the hardships they had undergone, and longed to be on land again. The first island they saw was a high and mountainous one. As the day advanced, they saw another more level, and then others appeared, till they counted 6 of some of good size, all covered with forests to the water's edge, right? Description of the Caribbean islands, like the land of milk and honey, right? The beautiful land of milk and honey, man. Haiti, Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Bahamas, right? And check this out. We're going to do a video on the Bimini Trail real soon, man. I'm just trying to gain some more information on that one, right? Because it's a lot going on with that, but that's neither here nor there, right? Look, sailing along the shore to first discover island for the distance of a league and finding no suitable anchoring ground, they proceeded to the next island, which was 4 or 5 leagues distant. And here the admiral landed, bearing a royal standard, and took formal possession of this and all adjacent lands in the name of their highness. He named the first island Dominica, right? And I got a video dropping too of the Caribs of Dominica, right? We're going to learn about the Caribs of Dominica and what they were described as, right? I got that one. That's a good one coming real soon for the folks, right? But Dominica, because it was discovered on a Sunday, and to the second island, the name of his ship, Marie Galante, right? In this island, says Chanka, it was wonderful to see the dense forest and the great variety of unknown trees, some in bloom, others with fruit. Everything looked so green. We found a tree, the leaves whereof resembled laurel leaves, but not so large, and they had held the finest order of cloves, right? Y'all had trees in Puerto Rico that folks didn't even have in Europe. It was unknown to these people. Like, they found a lot of stuff over here that were unknown to them, which is crazy to me, because if it's unknown to y'all and y'all know about everything that's going on in the world over there, let's remember they were already going to the East Indies, right, and enslaving them people over there too. Y'all already know about what's over there. However, you remain to make the statement that everything over here was unknown to you, which means that truly this land here in America is by far older than what you can bear to understand or that you have knowledge of, because what's here is unknown. You did not know about it until you got here, right? Which means you were late, brother. They were late, right? That's like when you find out a good food spot and then one of your homies or somebody you know find out about it 6 months later, right? It's new and unknown to them, but it's old to you. So this is kind of the whole thing with the new world, old world stuff, because everything that you seeing over here, you saying is unknown. However, you remain to call this the new world. It's new to you, which proves that they're telling this story from their perspective, not from truth, or not from what was here, or not from what the inhabitants saw, or not from what actually existed. They're telling this story of from how they felt and how they perceive things to be, which is a perception, and perception is not always reality. I'm just saying, y'all. We gotta understand, man. I'm just saying, y'all. Milestone Thoughts, what up, bro? I'm surprised you're not on the YouTube channel. You pull up, bro. Pull up. You bugging. Pull up, bro. Come get right. Right, but yeah, so look, they say there were fruits of many kinds, some of which the men imprudently tasted, with the result that their faces swelled, right? They were allergic, right? Weak immune system mother lovers. And that they suffered such violent pain in the throat and mouth that they behaved like madmen. The application of cold substances giving them some relief. no signs of the inhabitants were discovered. So they remained ashore 2 hours only and left the next morning early, November 4th, in the direction of another island 7 or 8 leagues northward. They anchored off the southernmost coast of it, now known as Basse Terre, and admired a mountain in the distance which seemed to reach into the sky, the volcano La Soufriere, and the beautiful waterfalls on its flank. The admiral sent a small caravel close inshore to look for a port, which was soon found. Right, so they describing a mountain that was in Puerto Rico. That is it's a volcano, but it was a mountain that reached into the sky. They're describing it, right? They're describing the beauty, right? The scenery of what that may look like over there in Puerto Rico. Right? This belongs to this belongs to Puerto Rico. This is Puerto Rico's history. Perceiving some huts, the captain landed, but the people who occupied them escaped into the forest as soon as they saw the strangers. On entering the huts, they found 2 large parrots, guacamayos, entirely different from those seen until then. Let's move this out the way. Until then by the Spaniards. Much cotton spun and ready for spinning, and other articles bringing their way a little of each, especially, says the doctor, 4 or 5 bones of human arms and legs. So they've been dealing with cotton, right? So again, another historical slavery hijack, right? They associate picking cotton with slavery, but people would be surprised, right? I spoke with my grandmother when she came here, and she told me when she used to pick cotton as a kid, she enjoyed it. That was the craziest stuff I've ever heard. And it actually changed my perspective on what history actually looked like. People been doing that stuff. The problem came when they made you do it all day, right? And not for your benefit, but for their benefit, right? So picking cotton ain't bad. So the next time I see somebody post something on Facebook like, hey, would you pick a field of cotton for $50 million? I promise you I am. I promise you I am. I'm picking the hell out that cotton. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pick that cotton faster than Goku and Piccolo picked the lettuce heads when Chi-Chi told them that they had to pick the lettuce heads, right? I don't know if y'all watched Dragon Ball Z, but that was a funny ass scene, right? But for sure, I'm picking that cotton. For 50 mil? Yeah. Nobody's stopping me. I dare you try me. Try and stop me. I will murk you for that 50 mil. And better off, I'm going to do it like I'm proud and happy of doing my job, right? I'm going to be standing in the field, wipe the sweat off my forehead, right? Smile, wave at everybody passing by while everybody looking at me like I'm fucking crazy. Oops. I didn't mean to curse y'all, sorry. Right, but let's continue, right? We getting off track. From this, the admiral concluded that he had found the islands inhabited by the redoubtable Caribs, right? Of whom he had heard on his first voyage and were said to eat human flesh. We've heard this many times before. This is where the term Caribbean islands comes from, right? It comes from the term Carib, and then the Carib is just another term that they use to associate hand in hand with cannibal. But I've spoke with a lot of people and heard from a lot of people that the Caribs entirely weren't cannibals. The true cannibals were the Spaniards. The Caribs were just doing what they had to do to survive, which some people say is not cannibalism. I would still say it's cannibalism, right? But hey, I'm not the one to judge. You know, those are our brothers and sisters across the way. It is what it is, right? You do what you got to do to survive, right? But this is where the term comes from. And here we see it again popping up in yet another book. This is how we keep track of truths and lies, because when we see it in multiple documents, we know how to decipher and use discernment to pick out the truth and the lies. The general direction in which these islands were situated had been pointed out to him by the natives of Guanahani, and the Española. Hence, he had steered a southwesterly course on his second voyage, and says the doctor, by the goodness of God and the admiral's knowledge, we came as straight as if we had come by a known and continuous route. Having found a convenient port and seen some groups of huts, the inhabitants of which fled as soon as they perceived the ships, the admiral gave orders that the next morning early practices of men should go on shore to reconnoitre. Accordingly, some captains, each with a small band of men, dispersed. Most of them returned before noon with the tangible results of their expeditions. One party brought a boy about 14 years of age, who from the signs he made was understood to be a captive from some other island. Another party brought a child that had been abandoned by the man who was leading it by the hand when he perceived the Spaniards. Others had taken some women, and one party was accompanied by women who had voluntarily joined them, and who on that account were believed to be captives. Also, right, they were capturing children. When they got here, they were capturing children. Right, doing stuff like that for no apparent reason, right? Look, they had brought a child, right, that had been abandoned by the man who was leading it by the hand when he perceived the Spaniards. Others had taken some women, and one party was accompanied by women who had voluntarily joined them, and who on that account were believed to be captives also. So they were capturing people off the rip. Right, look, off the rip. Soon as they got here, right, soon as they came in their mob of sweaty Spanish men, right, sweaty Spaniards, that's what I call them, right. Captain Diego Marquez with 6 men who had entered the thickest part of the forest did not return that night, nor the 3 following days. Notwithstanding, the admiral had sent Alonso de Ojeda with 40 men to explore the jungle, blow trumpets, and do all that could be done to find them. When on the morning of the 4th day they had not returned, there was ground for concluding that they had been killed and eaten by the natives. But they made their appearance in the course of the day, emaciated and wearied, having suffered great hardships, till by chance they had struck the coast and followed it till they reached the ships. They brought 10 persons with them, women and boys, right? Capturing the women and children, right? What made their way inland, packed up all of the women and children, not all of them, but whatever women and children that they could find, and brought them back with them to the ships, right? These people being Tainos, right? These are the Tainos. They talking about these Taino women and children. During the days thus lost, the other captains collected more than 20 female captives, and 3 boys came running toward them, evidently escaping from their captors. Few men were seen. It was afterward ascertained that 10 canoes full had gone on one of their marauding expeditions, right? So this is also Caribs capturing other Tainos, right? Capturing other Tainos, right? Look, in their different expeditions on the shore, the Spaniards found all the huts and villages abandoned, and in them an infinite quantity of human bowls and skulls hanging on the walls as receptacles. From the natives taken on board, the Spaniards learned that the name of the first islands they had seen was Cayari or Kiri, the one they were on named Sibucaria, and they spoke of a third, not yet discovered, named AA. The admiral gave to Sibucaria the name of Guadalupe, right? So these being the aboriginal names, right, of a lot of these countries and islands over here in the West Indies. We got Cayari or Kiri, we got Sibucaria, right, AA, right? Things that people don't know, right? These are the aboriginal names of those countries. Dope to find out, right? Very dope to find out. Very dope to learn. Anchors were weighed at daybreak on November 10th. About noon of the next day, the fleet reached an island which Juan de la Cosa laid down on his map with the name Santa Maria de Montserrat. From the Indian woman on board, it was understood that this island had been depopulated by the Caribs and was then uninhabited. Right, Caribs going on each island and just murking off on these Tainos. Right, this is according to what their own inhabitants said they saw, right, or had happened. Right, so yeah, tribes were warring on one another in the Wayward and Leeward Islands. Like in my History of the Caribs videos, check them out. Caribs, yeah, they were coming from South America and moving northward. Right, they even made it as far as to Florida and Louisiana at one point, crossing through the Gulf of Mexico on their canoes, right? Because the Caribs, they were expert seafarers, right? They knew how to sail. They knew what they was doing on them canoes. They built giant canoes that could fit almost 25 to 30 people, right? On the same day, in the afternoon, they made another island, which according to Navarrete was named by the admiral Santa Maria de la Redonda, the round one. And seeing that there were many shallows in the neighborhood and that it would be dangerous to continue the voyage during the night, the fleet came to anchor. On the following morning, the 13th, another island was discovered. This is the discovery of Antigua. Thence the fleet proceeded in the northwesterly direction to San Martin, without landing at any place because as Chanca observes, the admiral was anxious to arrive at La Española, right? Haiti, DR, right? He was anxious to get to Española. Christopher Columbus was anxious to get there, right? This is why I say he skipped past Puerto Rico, right? Puerto Rico wasn't even of his concern at the time. Right, he went straight to Hispaniola, right, and Cuba and them places, right. Juan Ponce de Leon took over Puerto Rico. He's the one who is responsible for a lot of the deaths and repartimiento and encomienda, so to say, and slavery of the Taino people of Puerto Rico. He is majority responsible for it, definitely. Where we at? Fernandez, the admiral's son, in his description of his father's second voyage, says that a small craft, a sloop with 25 men, was sent ashore to take some of the people, that Columbus might obtain information from them regarding his whereabouts. While they carried out this order, a canoe with 4 men, 2 women, and a boy approached the ship, and struck with astonishment at what they saw, they never moved from one spot till the sloop returned with 4 kidnapped women and 3 children. See, kidnapping everybody, right? Just taking everybody. Like, yep, we y'all coming with us, right? Y'all coming with us, right? We're gonna use y'all to basically discover or find out where the majority population is. We want to know where the people is at, so we can start interrogating and finding out where all this gold and all this stuff is at, all this stuff that we could steal and take from y'all, from the people, the inhabitants of the islands. Let's continue. When the natives in the canoe saw the sloop bearing down upon them that they had no chance of escape, they showed fight. 2 Spaniards were wounded. An arrow shot by one of the Amazons went clear through a buckler, and then the canoe was overturned. And finding a footing in a shallow place, they continued to fight till they all were taken, one of them being mortally wounded by the thrust of a lance. To regain the latitude in which he was sailing, when the storm began to drive his ship southwestward to AA, the admiral, after a delay of only a few hours, steered north until toward nightfall. He reached a numerous group of small islands. Most of them appeared bare and devoid of vegetation, right? He's going towards the Leeward Islands now. The next morning, a small caravel was sent among the group to explore, the other ships standing out to sea for fear of shallows. But nothing of interest was found except a few Indian fishermen. All of the islands were uninhabited, and they were baptized the 11,000 virgins, right? Thus creating the largest one according to Navarrete was the Santa Ursula La Virgen Gorda, the Fat Virgin according to Anglo-Area, right? This is what creates the term Virgin Islands, right? This is the Virgin Islands, right? That's what they talking about. The archipelago in the Caribbean, the Virgin Islands, right? These small islands. That's what he talking about. The U.S. Virgin Islands. All right, let's get back in it. During the night, the ships lay at sea. On the 16th, the voyage was contained till the afternoon of the 17th. When another island was sighted, the fleet sailed along its southern shore for a whole day. That night, 2 women and a boy of those who had voluntarily joined the expedition in Sopaqueria, right? So you had people also voluntarily joining. Like, look at that. Big drop. Not too many people know about that. You had folks offering to go with them. Like, hey, we want to go with y'all. Right? So who's to say they all weren't doing that, right? Who's to say they all weren't doing that, right? This is what I mean. It leaves the door open for so much speculation because you got people being kidnapped and then you got people who are offering to join them on this voyage, right? Knowing what comes with that, what might come with that. Right? On the 19th, the fleet anchored in a bay on the western coast, where Columbus landed and took possession in the name of his royal patrons. With the same formalities as observed in Marie Galante, and named the island San Juan Bautista. Near the landing place was found a deserted village consisting of a dozen huts of the usual size, surrounding a larger one of superior construction. From the village, a road or walk hedged in by trees and plants led to the sea, which, says Munoz, gave it the aspect of some cacique's place of seaside recreation. After remaining 2 days in port and without a single native having shown himself, the fleet lifted anchor on the morning of the 22nd and, proceeding on its northwesterly course, reached the Bay of Samana in Hispaniola. Before night, when sailing along the coast, the admiral reached the longed-for port of Navidad on the 25th, only to find that the first act of the bloody drama that was to be enacted in this bright new world had already been performed, right? The first act of the bloody drama that was to be enacted in this bright new world had already been performed. What are they trying to say? Right? The kidnapping. Right? The kidnapping of women and children. Right? Getting right? Stuff like that going down. Here we leave Columbus and his companions to play the important roles in the conquest of America assigned to each of them. The fortunes of the yeomen of humble birth, the former lance-bearer of Stirrup Page, of Knight Commander of Calvatra, already referred to, were destined to become intimately connected with those of the island whose history we will now trace. Right, and we conclude that one right there, that right there. We just got through chapter 1 and chapter 2, and already we learning that they kidnapping women and children. Right, they're inbreeding chiefs' daughters, right? They giving islands new names, right? We learning the origins of the Virgin Islands, the name of the Virgin Islands. We got islands like AA, wild different stuff like that. This is early America in the 1500s, 1493, right? This is early America. This is the arrival of the Spaniards. Look, we learn that Columbus came over here with majority of these Spaniards and their fathers, right, who did some of the nastiest and most disgusting things on this American mainland that we could have ever possibly learned about, right? Y'all thought the 1800s was bad, man. They was doing folks dirty. In 1493, between the 1400s and the 1600s, the French and Spanish were doing folks bad. Now, I just want people to understand this portion of history. I brought this one to the channel specifically so that those who carry that blood basically can understand history, the history of their country a little bit more, right? Learn about the origins of your country. Learn about where your people might have come from, right? Learn about the things that was going down in Puerto Rico, right? The island of Boriken, right? Learn about the origins, right? What was happening, right? They make it so famous to know that Christopher Columbus discovered these islands, and they make it so famous to know that they conquered the land and made this their land, and everything that came after that was of their origin. But what happened before that, right? What's some of the accounts of what the people saw before that, right? That's the thing that we're going to be talking about, right? We're going to talk about the chiefs that were prominent in Boriken history, right? We're going to talk about the fight, right? Their redemption, the things that they had to endure, and how they got through some of these battles and some of these wars, right? A lot of the stuff that was happening, how they did it with the help of their brothers and sisters from Jamaica and Cuba and Haiti and whatnot. And eventually, as we go down into this a little bit more, we're going to learn what role Puerto Rico played in the Haitian Revolution, right? Now, I appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. It's the Copper Color King. Much love, much respect. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. Follow on TikTok, Copper Color King. Follow across all platforms. We really go crazy. We really be dropping facts. We really be dropping truth bombs. We do this every weekend, willingly, effortlessly. No problems, never whatsoever, man. Like I said, I appreciate y'all.